Lightsaber Build. In this video, I decide to finish my Jedi training and build a lightsaber. First, we cut off the threads of our pipe, and all of these things we just bought at Home Depot. So we ground off the top to match the kind of flat spots on the tip we're going to use. We put on the handle, and I was going to drill some decorative holes to make it nice and fancy looking. Then I just need to cut the switch, which we're going to make out of copper. And then we're going to put on the threads on the bottom of it, screw on the brass nut, and put a button on the switch, and then just a nice little decorative thing. And so this is our rough plan. This is kind of where I'm starting with. Once we cut off all of the threads, then we kind of just sanded it out, made it nice and clean. And in retrospect, we could have kept the threads on one half of it so we didn't have to rethread it, but it would have made it a little longer than I wanted it to. So we had to weld in this solid tube on the center so we can actually flatten out the sides for the tip, and that makes it so there's no gaps in between these little flat centers that I'm drawing out. So I'm just drawing them out, and I'll take it over to the sander, flatten them out, and it's just so they kind of match up and look a little bit more decorative rather than going from a hexagon shape down onto a round surface. So I will say that the plan that I put out in front there that I originally had, where I kind of drew it together and everything, that does not stay consistent through. I had to change it up and everything. One, I wasn't crazy about the decorative holes that I was going to put on the handle. I thought it was going to look cool, but I thought it was going to be horrible to try and do and make it look good. And luckily, my uncle actually had a lathe that I could use. So we end up using that instead. We'll show that later. But here we find that the copper piece that I got was a little too big, so I cut the smaller one and took a chunk out of it, and it will fit in like a sleeve. So I'm just kind of smoothing it up, opening it up, and so pretty much it's gonna, you won't even see it, but it's gonna hold the other copper piece where the button goes into in place. But now we need to drill out our hole for the copper, and I know I'm not doing everything exactly right. There's going to be metal workers that watch this and say, oh, well, that's not the way to do it. That's the wrong way to do it. And that's fine. This is kind of, I was building it with the tools that I had. Like I said, someone said that they had a lathe that I got to use, and so that worked out really well. But otherwise, I'm kind of using the tools I had handies, which was pretty much a drill press, a drill, some cutting wheels, and a sander. And so that's kind of where this all started with. Those were the tools I was going to use to start with. So that's pretty much what you see is me working with the tools I got. And I encourage everyone to do the same thing. If there's something that you want to build, just draw it out and think, can I do this? And that's really what I wanted to do was, could I do this? So here you kind of see it kind of starting to come together. It threads on, and then we'll put this over the top where the button will go, and it's coming along pretty well so far. So it's kind of at this point where I start going a little bit more into the details and everything. So here we're going to kind of just round out that nose, and that's the part that will butt up against the copper piece. So I wanted it to kind of just hook into the copper a little bit more. I thought it would look nice. So I just kind of sanded it down a little bit, and like I said, 1.5 million different ways you should probably be doing this, but I just held my hands as steady as I could, and it worked out perfect for me. So you got to work with what you got. But here I want to do the same beveling on the bottom as I did on the top portion of it, so that's what we'll do. Now, like I mentioned, no more decorative holes. We're going to put the grooves in. But first, I cut this brass piece, and you can see there's that copper piece we cut out and filed down. Put that brass piece in there, and that'll be the button sleeve. Here we have another copper connector, and we're going to cut that out and have it flare out. And the reason why I wanted to use this is when we look down into that other piece, if you remember, we saw the second piece of copper inside and then the brass fitting that we're going to use as the button sleeve, and I want to hide that. So this one will sit on top of it and kind of hide it, but there's going to be a gap because it's not a perfect fit over a copper pipe. So to combat that, I'm going to drill in a bunch of holes and put in the Allen wrench kind of lugs and make it so it kind of looks like it's got a little bit more decorative to it. But instead it will actually be the screws will be holding it in place so nothing can move. So here we've kind of marked our places. We'll drill it out, then we'll put a tap on it, and we will screw in our Allen screws. So one thing that I didn't put into the video, but it kind of important, is I was originally going to drill in these holes through the copper and then through into the steel, and I found it was going to be way easier if I just went over to the lathe and put a groove on it where those will actually slide into place as well, because then I can spin it around if I need to. So I just put it on the lathe and kind of put a groove on the main piece where those screws will kind of sit into. But here we are spinning the handle, and pretty much I'm just trying to keep it oiled and everything like that, but going nice and slow. We're going a little bit wider than we are deeper, but overall it's coming into like a really nice handle grip. Now this is coming to the end of our machining portion of the video, but you can see we've got kind of a nice piece here. Needs a little cleaning up, but now we're going to focus on the patina and the metal finishing. So we can paint it and everything like that, but we sell patinas, so let's do that. So no matter what we choose to do, got to start with cleaning. So this is the Sculpt Nouveau metal cleaner, and we're going to use this on all of our metal pieces, even the pieces that we're not going to patina. So even if you're watching this video and you're like, I'm never going to patina it, that doesn't make sense, I'm just going to use Rust-Oleum, that's fine. You still need to clean the metal, and our Sculpt Nouveau metal cleaner does a great job at that. Now this is our Black Magic, and remember this piece has been lathed, so it's completely abraded. It's bare metal as it can get. We just cleaned off all the WD-40 and grease and everything, but you can see we've got a nice kind of gunmetal gray here. When we clear coat it, it's going to go near black. But I'm going to take it over the lathe again. And so this is 80 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to clean out those grooves again. I could put it back on the lathe and it would pull it right back off and everything. And so that's another option. If you want, you can actually blacken the whole thing and then lathe it. But this is what I did. And you can see it's not perfect. I don't want perfect though, but I didn't really want those scratches on the base. So here's a good touch-up tip. Q-tips. So I got a little more Black Magic on the Q-tips. I kind of feather it in a little bit there. And if you let it react too long, yes, it will stick out like a sore thumb. It'll be, hey, I'm blacker in this area than I am over there. But if you go nice and quick, put a little bit on there, and then rinse it off, you can blend it in just fine. And so that's what I'm going to do here. Just a little bit of Q-tip, rubbing it in, and then I take my rag soaked with water, and I just kind of wipe it down. And you can dunk it, and that's all fine and dandy, but I didn't need to get the whole thing wet. It's just a little touch-up. So wait for the camera to come in, and you can see it's feathered, or it's focused in a lot better. Like I said, I don't want perfect. I want it to look like it's been a little bit used. But now I'm going to oil it. So the main reason for the oil is I'm done with this piece. I don't want it to oxidize. I don't want any rust to come in. I'm just going to oil it, and I can clear coat everything later if I want. Here we have the copper pieces, and this is heated up to about 180, 200 degrees. And we're going to start with the ferric nitrate. So we go in with the ferric nitrate, then we go in with the cupric nitrate, and that's going to give us that brown and green combination, that really kind of weathered copper look. And I really like how it came out. It's not, it's not uniform. It's a little bit different and kind of looks a little weathered, and really kind of completes the look that I was going for. If I wanted to get a really weathered piece, I could have rusted out the steel a little bit more, but I wasn't worried about it. I kind of like how this came apart, and where we have the contrast of black, and then we have this verdigris color on top. Now, in case you haven't watched some of our other videos, the cupric and ferric nitrate combination is a unique one. You can use a lot of different bases, not necessarily ferric, but the cupric is a unique one. You can notice that I spray it and then I heat it again, and the heating it again, the second heating pass, is where the green really starts popping out. You can spray it on there and it won't do anything. And as soon as you come back with that extra heat, that's when the color kind of pops out a little bit more. You can see it happening over and over again. So whenever you use cupric nitrate, I always recommend heating, doing a little, and then heating again, so you can see that color kind of come out. It needs that second wave of heat in order for it to kind of just develop and do its thing. So just take your time and kind of build slowly with those patinas. Here we're going to use the M24 on this brass button. And I'm going to end up shaving those threads off later on. Another one of those kind of roll with the punches situations here, but I'm just going to M24 the whole thing. Alternatively, you can dip it in M20 or use Black Magic, PC9. There's so many different options for this choice, but I like how this kind of warm color came out of that. Here we have the brass tip. And originally I wanted to kind of do a little bit of torch or rainbow color and try and get it to look like something really hot's come out of it. But this particular casting didn't actually want to react as I wanted it to. I got a reaction, but it didn't do that purple color that I wanted. So I just went for a nice weathered kind of brownish look. So this rod is going to be completely just regular steel. It's not going to be patinaed or anything, but we still need to clear coat it. We still need to clean it. So that was our Sculpt Nouveau metal cleaner. I'm going to warm it up because if we warm it up, we draw that moisture out and then we don't trap in any moisture. And then I'm just going to seal it in. So if we seal it in, then it's not going to rust. It's going to stay as is. So I just sealed it in to make sure it's all good to go. So now we start the assembly process. And this is sped up and everything, but it'll show you the whole assembly pretty much. So you can see that first copper piece went on. I had to kind of hammer it on and everything. That's what that other silver piece or the other steel piece is there, is it's just there to help hammer it in. So now we fit the secondary copper piece in, and again, those screws are going into the groove that we set, so I can spin it around still and everything. But that tells me how much further I need to hit the other piece. So we're going to hammer that in just a little bit. And it's scratching the steel a little bit, but it's so tight I'm not worried about anything happening underneath it. It'll be just fine. So now you can see that copper flange is sitting out and everything. But now we'll put in our brass fitting. Again, that just kind of covers and makes it so we've got an extra little color there. A little tapping and it'll go right in. From there, we put our sleeve on and our end cap. And the nice thing about this is all deassemble. The only hard piece to deassemble it would be that copper piece, or the copper piece with the button sleeve there. So now we just need to do a little quick JB quick weld and on those two pieces, and then that will be complete. So this is just a stainless ring, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on the end of the brass nut. So I need to kind of cut out a section, open it up a little bit, hammer it down flat on the ends, and then kind of squeeze that in. So we'll just get it real hot, hit it with a hammer real quick, and that should flatten it out for me. And the JB weld I mentioned, I'm not going to show in this video. Accidentally did it mostly off of camera, and it wouldn't show you guys much anyway. So we just did a little JB weld to hold the button on and the tip on, and that's about all we did on that. But you can see here's the brass nut. We're going to drill 2 holes, and then we're just going to put it in the vice clamp and kind of squeeze it till it fits. So here we have our final lightsaber build, and I had a lot of fun with this project. I really encourage anyone who has ever thought, man, it'd be awesome to try and build that, just go for it. That's all I did here. I walked through Home Depot, said, yep, that part, that part, that part, and that part. And I just went for it. And I've never built anything like this before. I'm a patina guy. I do patinas and metal finishing. I'm not really a builder. So if you want to try it, just go for it. Just remember, safety, PPE, make sure you kind of know how to use the tool you're working with, but overall, just have fun with it. All of the metal finishing products can be found at www.sculptnouveau.com. So the Black Magic, the ferric nitrate, the cupric nitrate, the M24, and the rainbow can all be found at Sculpt Nouveau's website or store.